Hello, North Carolina Cyber Academy ninth grade students and families. It's Mrs. Barnhart, ninth grade assistant principal again, and I wanted to congratulate you all on making it to the second week of quarter two. Speaking of quarter two, we just finished quarter one, so keep your eyes peeled for those report cards. Those will be sent electronically to inboxes. Now, in addition to that, I also have a few other reminders and pieces of information to share, so don't forget to look at the rest of the newsletter below. But for the rest of this video, I just wanted to briefly explain to you the iReady assessments and the data that you may have just received in your inboxes today, shortly before this newsletter came out. The iReady assessment is an assessment that is very different than the EOCs or the EOGs, or even than the benchmarks that a student might be taking. So if you're wondering why, what is the purpose of all of this testing, there is actually a different purpose for each of those types of tests. The EOCs and EOGs, those are end of course assessments. In high school, we only have EOCs, stands for end of course. And those take place for just 4 courses, Math 1, Math 3, English 2, and Biology. Those students who are currently enrolled in those courses will take an EOC exam in person at the end of the semester. And students who are assigned to those courses for the spring will then take their EOC exam in May. Now, in addition to EOCs, we also have benchmarks or check-in exams in those same courses. Those exams are also North Carolina specific, and they are also aligned to the same course-related standards. Now, the purpose of the benchmarks or the check-ins is to do exactly that, check in, and see how students are doing with the content on their way to the EOC exam. The purpose of that is to get a gauge for both students and teachers on what students are and are not grasping while there is still time to intervene, meaning that the class isn't over yet. Now, in addition to those assessments, you would have seen in the ninth grade that students took 2 different tests, the iReady diagnostic for reading and the diagnostic for math. The purpose of those tests is very different than EOCs and check-ins. The actual test is not even specific to a grade level. It is not specific to a particular course either. The purpose of that exam is to really understand student skills and their prior knowledge. We gave that assessment hoping to be able to use the data to meet the part of our strategic plan that you heard about in the last newsletter, which is personalizing the learning. The only way to truly personalize the learning is to get to know the learner and what deficits they may have due to COVID learning loss, or perhaps there was a move or some other life event that caused some gap to exist in their knowledge. Oftentimes that gap will exist, and then more knowledge will be built on top of not very strong foundation. And so the goal with the iReady assessment is to figure out where those holes might be and then to go and strategically fill those in, which should hopefully provide students with a much more solid foundation to be able to continue throughout their high school career learning all of the content, hopefully with much more ease. So when you are looking at the assessment results that you might see in your inbox, you might see something that says that your child tested below grade level or at grade level, or it might say 2 or 3 or more grade levels below in a particular area. Please communicate with your child that that is not something that is set in stone. That just means that that is the potential location for one of those gaps. It doesn't mean that they don't have learning on top of that, but it is an area where we need to work to try and work together with you and your student to fill in those gaps and continue to move forward and not let those holes or those deficits hold them back from the success that they could potentially reach if we filled them in. So we wanted to share that information with you. None of that is set in stone. We actually will be giving the iReady math and reading assessments again at the end of November. And those assessments we plead with everyone to please take. Please take them seriously and do your very best so that we can get a really good gauge and true information about what your student does and doesn't know. And that way we'll be able to best provide them with what they need to be successful here at North Carolina Cyber Academy. If you do have any questions about the report, there is a website that you can visit. It's i-readycentral.com/family center. That link is provided in the report. You can also reach out to our MTSS coordinator, Mr. Hinkleman, and his contact information was also shared with you in that report. If you do have any additional questions or any needs, please feel free to reach out to myself, to Mr. Hinkleman, if it's related to the iReady, to your student's counselor, Ms. Brown, or our social worker, Ms. McDonald. There are a ton of us here who want to help you and your students succeed, so please just let us know what we can do to help, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And don't forget, keep your eyes peeled for those report cards.